agenda too, so.
Okay,
Everything else is the same on the packet.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, wanna drop in?
I'm good, thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michael Burns, the chair, and I'll call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is, are there any amendments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll have the board note that the language to item number 9 with the Minnesota deed grant, there's a little bit different language, and you have a new agenda in front of you that reflects that new motion, new support that we're looking for. We've also reflected that change online already as well.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, moving on. Approval of the minutes from last month. Is there any discussion?
Yep, I have one revision. I actually am listed as present, and I know I wasn't able to come to that meeting because of a work commitment. And with that revision, I would move to approve.
Okay, thank you. Second. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We did not, I just realized that. Thank you. Amy, would you do that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members present today include Nate Anderson, Michael Burns, Violet Delkey, Chuck Hendrickson, Zach Hirene, Pat Kovash, and Deb White.
Thank you. All right, citizens addressing the board. Is anyone interested or have anything? Okay, commissioners' reports. Yeah, Pat.
Just a quick report, it's almost time for the fireworks, so we're gonna have our Ooh and Ah celebration. We're gonna have 3 food trucks that are gonna be open at 6 p.m. The gates are gonna open at 8 p.m. Post-traumatic funk syndrome is gonna be playing, and the fireworks are gonna start at 10:30 p.m. We do still need some more volunteers just for perimeter security and maybe to help pick up afterwards. So if there's anybody out there that's gonna be there, you can call 218-284-4643 and talk to Sherry and get your name on the list. We could still use a few volunteers. We also have our Bridge Bash going on September 5th on the Main Avenue Bridge. We're gonna be welcoming back all the college students. Boy, that's coming up pretty quick here. That's not very far away. So free admission, live music, food trucks, photo booth, and many local business vendors and tables. If you want to be a vendor, there again, you can give Sherry a call. And this year, the MBA is partnering with the Fargo Downtown Community Partnership. So that's going to be nice. I think it's going to really be a nice crowd there. So that's what we have going.
Okay.
So when you said free food trucks, that's for the volunteers?
On free admission,
Oh, free admission?
free admission,
Okay.
yeah.
Because you said free food
No,
trucks.
no, it's free admission
That
to
would
the,
be-
to the
you
Bridge
might
Bash.
get more
Yeah.
volunteers.
Yeah, the food truck vendors wouldn't be very happy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. All right. I think the next item, I'll let Derek introduce that one on the Renaissance Zone.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a Renaissance Zone application from Matt's Automotive, Lockwitzer Investments LLC. You'll see in your packet a pretty extensive kind of detail of the project itself. Mike Dawson is the project architect who is with us today. I think Matt is planning to join us as well. So I'll maybe introduce it, then I'll ask Mike. And Mike, you can probably just come join us at the table now if you'd like. But I'll introduce it, and then you can ask questions specific to Mike. He'll best be able to answer some more project specific. But I'll give you a little bit more of the general application and what we're reviewing here. A little bit of project history. So this is the building that's along First Avenue North in downtown Moorhead. You may recall that the heavy snow load this winter had a collapse of the existing building at Matt's Automotive. That was deemed as a total loss by insurance. And right now, that building is not habitable. It's not, you can't have any use going on. So they are looking to basically remove that structure, remove the existing parking, and really recreate and redesign that site completely. They would, again, demolish everything, look at building a new building that's approximately 9,600 square feet. That's 2 floors. First floor would be the service center. The second floor would be an office, break room, and a training center. You know, some of I'll touch on a little bit of the Renaissance Zone itself, right? These goals and objectives that we define are really looking at the intent of the project, right? Not specific design elements or details in that order, but it's really looking at the intent of the project. So based on the application submitted by Matt and Mike, we felt that this project certainly is an activity generator. They do a lot of business for our downtown community and Moorhead as a whole, as well as a lot of Fargo. I think Matt has shared with me, and I think he would share if he was present today, that he gets a lot of business from North Fargo, as well as other Fargo residents to come over and use that facility. We view that this is an infill project. We're taking an existing building that really will be occupied and transformed into a new space. Also is a downtown entryway. We kind of see, and we'll be defining through the downtown plan, some kind of different transitional zones of downtown. Certainly this band that we see where Matt's Automotive is, we have other auto mechanic shops that really create some services for our downtown community. This project and the project itself, we've had a few different meetings with city staff. We had a pre-development meeting on Friday last week where the developer went through in detail the preliminary site plans and any details to the project itself. It does meet all of the zoning requirements. I think there were some comments there, but the architect and the owner will go back and try to amend some of the specific kind of details. The project cost itself is estimated at $1.2 million. That equates to $125 per square foot of an investment. You'll see on your table here on page 2 of the Renaissance Zone item, we have a breakdown of the cost per square foot. These are capital costs to the building, and we define that within our Renaissance Zone policy. The $125 a square foot is the base or the floor level of the 10-year exemption. So as a reminder, existing land is taxable, existing improvements are still taxable. In this case, since everything will be demolished, and actually the building right now is basically by the local assessment has been zeroed out since that building is not usable. So we'll be looking at a full exemption on the property itself unless any parking remains. The first 5 years would be 100% exempt. The last 5 years would be 75% exempt. You'll see some of the proposed materials. If approved by the City Council, again, just a note that you are recommending approval of this particular incentive program, recommending approval, denial, or conditional approval to the City Council to make the final action. But if approved by the Council, the project would begin July of 2019 with an estimated completion of March 2020. You'll see in the application itself some of the site plans, some of the renderings in there. Certainly they're trying to make it look not like an ordinary auto mechanic shop, which I certainly appreciate Mike and Chris Holly Architects for doing a good job with that. With that, it does meet our policies. I'd be happy to answer any questions specific to the project itself, and Mike is here to answer any questions as well.
Thank you. Yes.
No, I don't have a question. I just want to say I'm really pleased by this. Since we have the architect here, I want to say I really like the attention to design elements. I think it is a really creative look, and I'm thinking about that area as it starts to look more like a downtown, that also adding that second story and having it look like a few different buildings is it's not just meant to replicate an older building. It has some nice modern elements to it as well. But really, I appreciate being able to support someone who's been a good community partner. I love the fact that they're going to use some of that second story space for community classes too. So it'll be nice to have that as another resource in our area. And I know that, they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary in our area, and so it's nice to keep them in Moorhead.
Yeah, and I'll note too, and Mike, I don't know if you have any details on it, but after talking with the owner, Matt, he mentioned he travels across the country doing classes to different auto mechanic shops where they teach them, business, basically good business standards, best practices. I think he intends to use that space as something similar to this area, but also he runs different programs like getting women involved with auto mechanic classes, teaching them different things like oil changes, et cetera. So I think it's a really unique approach that certainly you don't see in a whole lot of just standard auto mechanic shops in the community. One thing too I would note that I didn't mention in the report is we have seen some complaints in the past about the parking on the site and some of those parking overhanging the sidewalk. I think this project definitely infills that sidewalk and that frontage of the street. They will have some parking on the east side of the property, but I think they've done a good job in accommodating and trying to restrict that kind of overhang and make it a little bit more pedestrian friendly as you walk by adding some green space and some different amenities in that order.
And what you probably don't see on your plan is something we talked about on Friday, is adding a little fence in front of the parking lot, actually in front of the sidewalk to keep cars from creeping. So that is yet to be designed, but there will be a fence of some kind there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Do I see 25 parking spots there? Is that about what you have?
Well, and again, there's been a slight adjustment to the program of the building. We've actually taken out 2 stalls. So we're allowing for 25 spots, but I think we're only required 22 at this point.
Okay,
Correct.
and then, it's 1.2 million. It seems like an awful, I'm putting up buildings too. It seems like an awful high square foot space for a lot of shop. So what's included in that? Is there demolition included in that, Derek? Are the hoists included? How are they getting to that evaluation? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you'll notice in our summary from staff as well as in the application itself, you'll see some costs of the different kind of buckets, as I would categorize it. So you have demolition, parking, excavation, site preparations of $100,000. You have foundation of $80,000, above ground construction of $790,000, equipment of $200,000, and then professional fees of $30,000. So that equates to the 1.2 million. I will note that when we define capital cost, it is, if you can imagine, if the building were to sell, it's what stays in the building and cannot be removed, right? It's hard costs of the project. We have asked Mike and Matt to provide some additional breakdown of that equipment cost, the $200,000. The hoist, the way we've been told and informed, is that they will actually be permanent to the building. They cannot be removable. I think in the past project, in the past building, those hoists were removable. They actually got moved to the temporary location on Center Avenue. But these new ones that would be built would be permanent to the structure itself.
Yep, it would be in the ground, integrated into the concrete.
But we've asked for a little bit more of a breakdown on the different equipment and what those costs would be. I will note too that this is on the floor level of our 10-year threshold for the term. There's obviously a trust that goes into that with the developer, but there's a responsibility, a fiscal responsibility of the city itself. So it's been very clear to Mike and to Matt that we can request receipts. We can request different project costs throughout the project itself. I think there could be probably a more in-depth ask from this group if need be, but there are checks and balances in place to make sure what is being built is legitimate. I think if there was, I can only think of a couple project cases in Fargo where I was running the Renaissance Zone there. Now, they only had one threshold level. It was 5 years was the term level. Some of them were below that $100 minimum investment threshold. Majority of the time you see project costs go over budget, not under budget. But a lot of times the Renaissance Zone Authority at that point would grant approval, but they would have us do additional checks to make sure that they do exceed that. Their standard was $100 a square foot. So we could accommodate that if necessary and requested by the EDA and to the council.
Yes.
I have a question. So, and again, I do think it looks like a beautiful, beautiful building.
Thank you.
It looks like it'll be a great addition. But tell me now, I know that, the building collapsed, and I believe they're doing business now on Center Avenue. Tell me, are they leasing that building, or?
Yeah.
He's purchased that building, and so he's temporarily, sort of trying to keep up with the volume that they have right now. However, there is a time frame, I think, that he's trying to stay within in order, to avoid serious losses of income due to, not as many bays as he would like. But yeah, he does own the building he's operating out of, and I think that'll probably become more of a corporate headquarters for them, kind of a home base.
Yeah, that's what we were informed by the owner, Matt. They obviously saw a need to create a space still in general proximity to their existing facility. That's where they acquired the facility on Center Avenue. But what have been told is that would remain in some type of capacity, a corporate office. Matt also holds a number of different businesses as well, not just the auto mechanic. He has a promotional type business as well, so I think he sees the ability to kind of collaborate and use that space in a lot of different order. Mm-hmm. It should be noted too that Matt also did acquire Todd's Alignment down on South Moorhead along kind of by Muscatel, Subaru down there. Mm-hmm. That he plans to open July 1 or early July. I don't know if it's open today, but early July. To serve more customers, obviously, in South Moorhead as well. So he's expanding to Moorhead. We certainly appreciate his business and continue to remain in our downtown area.
So will that Todd's Alignment, is that the same kind of work, or do they overlap a little bit, or?
Similar work. I mean, the main function of this project is really the sort of training center, I guess I'll call that. Mm-hmm. They're all sort of an auto body shop at the end of the day, but this one he kind of wanted to be more of a focus to kind of bring groups in and have different, community events and people from out of town do workshops and things. So
that is
they
wonderful.
all have that auto body, utility function, but this is more of the, community outreach facility.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just one quick follow-up regarding the Center Ave. So it sounds like they may actually do some more changes later, but it looks like they've already done substantial renovation to the building there as well.
They have, yeah. They've definitely cleaned up the building. They've done a lot of work to the exterior as well. So it does look great on the inside. We met over there on site, so they did not seek an incentive at that point in time. I had reached out to Matt early on when the roof collapsed just to let him know that we're here to help him in any way possible. So he kind of shared what his plans were at that point, but he didn't have anything really defined. A lot of it was still working through his insurance on the existing building. So, but he has put some significant capital into that one. He ran into some challenges there, which I think is really unique and really could add some value to how we kind of look at our downtown development, including they couldn't get fiber. They couldn't get internet to the site, which ended up being pretty strenuous from a cost standpoint. trying to get a remote kind of internet capacity there. But I wish we would have known about that early on. I think we could have maybe helped out a little bit, but it was a good perspective to understand some of the site challenges when you have narrow confinements with easements and other challenges on that site, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, the recommendation is needed to move this forward.
Mr. Chair, I would say too that if it is recommended for approval or conditional approval today, it would go to the July 8th City Council meeting, so next week, Monday, is what the plan would be.
So we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, everyone.
Mike?
Yeah, appreciate it, thanks.
All right, I guess you still have the floor, basically, Derek, with the next item to consider changes to the facade loan program.
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll notice in your packet, really a one-page document that you'll see here, because some red kind of highlighted text on it, as well as a front and back with a new application for the storefront program. Many of you probably know, some of you may not, with that the city of Moorhead has had a facade loan program for a number of years. There is yet to be a single applicant for this program in numerous years. Some of the things that we found were that, again, and it's not always a comparison to Fargo, but I think it's important to understand what we're up against and what the development community feels and experiences when they come in and use a program. Our assistant city manager, Dan Malia, created a storefront rehab program in the city of Fargo that was through community development block grants, so CDBG dollars, federal dollars. It was a grant program. Again, federal program, and that federal program had less paperwork than our local program. Many people that we had experience, I think even maybe Mr. Kovash maybe looked into it at one point in time and found that it was much easier just to write the check than go through the process of it. So we saw it as a tremendous barrier to even get somebody to come in and take advantage of a program. In the past, it was a loan format. We have been working with our counterpart in West Central Initiative to see if we could create a forgivable loan program. West Fargo has been talking about this for some time. I don't think it's established yet, but very soon. I don't know if Mr. Shockley knows either, but I've been working with their past economic development director on a forgivable loan program that they're doing that basically if you're in business for 5 years in the space, they will forgive the loan itself. That's kind of what we're mimicking in a way, but also taking some of the good that Fargo's done with their grant program. So really what you'll find is, instead of having what would you say, Amy, about a 14-page application, in the grand sense of just the details of the program, we've created just a simple one-pager and a front and back application. We've looked at, in the red is what you'll see a lot of the changes. We've looked at just, again, creating some uniformity in our community with the name of the program. Instead of a storefront or a facade loan program, that we just call it a storefront rehab program. We look to confine this to the boundaries of the Renaissance zone. So we're focusing on the areas that have some of those existing storefronts, but also give some flexibility in language that we could review cases if they make sense. For example, we've had a correspondence from Tasty Freeze, and they're outside of the Renaissance zone. Certainly, we want to try to help accommodate if it makes sense. They're right next to the boundary. We want to help. So I think having some flexibility like we do have with our Renaissance zone policy as well as our commercial industrial policy, we'd have a similar language put in place that could grant us the flexibility as an EDA or as a city to accommodate those types of projects. Under the loan amount and term, you'll see loans up to $25,000 per storefront. We do have an applicant that's looking to take advantage of this right away, which would be David Hunstead with the First Avenue promo and junkyard space. We would look at viewing each storefront independently, so it would have Obviously, some buildings just have one storefront itself, but some have multiple stores, whether it's retail, restaurant, et cetera. So we could accommodate each different storefront. That's what they're looking to do at that site. We've also looked at requiring a 50% matching grant. So having significant funds be put into the project before the city would just be able to grant dollars available to it. So we have some type of hold on that. This would be a 0% interest deferred and then forgivable loan after the 5 years. That's what we're kind of proposing here. I think I'd be open to discussion, obviously, with this group to see what people's thoughts are on that. But we certainly want to make this obtainable, achievable for the applicants. In really the grand scheme of it, we know that, say a project takes advantage of this, they fix up their storefront, they sell it in 6 years. We know we have a building that's improved and has great appeal that could be easily turned over with a different use. A couple other things on here you'll see is the approving authority. Many of you probably don't know, but under a subcommittee of the EDA, there is a Moorhead Design Committee. I don't know if it's really ever been utilized, nor do I feel it's necessary in this case. We want to make a consistent and uniform approach. Same with our Renaissance zone is that if it meets zoning and meets certain criteria that way, it should be acceptable. Unless we feel that those standards aren't appropriate, I think we need to define a policy that would create different building material requirements, et cetera. So I think some of that will come out of the downtown plan itself and maybe some improvements that we could look at that. But we'd look to basically remove that Moorhead Design Committee. How this typically works, and for those that don't understand how the Moorhead Loan Fund works, is typically an applicant will either reach out to myself or Amy or reach out to West Central Initiative right away. They hold our funds for the Moorhead Loan Fund, which is about $900,000. They would review that application, provide the Moorhead Loan Fund with a recommendation as to if this is something that fits their policy, is a good investment from the city standpoint. We would meet as a Moorhead Loan Fund committee, make that recommendation or make that approval. Then West Central would go back to their board and make the ultimate say if this is good for their policy standpoint. We just had one recently where it was Soul Avenue Kitchen, the one that's in Junkyard, where the city had graciously stepped up and provided some additional funding for that particular restaurant. So again, remove some barriers, remove some of the steps that are in process. We would just, again, take that to the Moorhead Loan Fund. The reason why it's not coming to the full EDA is because there are some information on the loan application and some private details that we don't really want to share in a public setting. I think we can report back to the EDA, but certainly the Moorhead Loan Fund is a safe space or a more confidential space where those details aren't shared to the public regarding the specific business. We could work with West Central. We could probably work with Mr. Shockley on how that could look on how we come back to the EDA, but we certainly want to create that safe space for the applicant coming in. One other item that's not listed on here too is we would be looking at setting a cap on the amount that would be set aside for this program. We know we have obviously some funds in our Moorhead Loan Fund, but we don't want to drain our reserves with a lot of different projects. We certainly want to encourage projects, but I think by setting a cap of about $200,000 is a good starting point. See if we can generate some activity, then we can always go back and review that if necessary. But I think we want to put a limitation on that so we make sure we're not going through our reserves or going through that loan fund quickly and not appropriately. So that's something that we've been working with West Central on as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
I really like the effort that you put into trying to streamline the process, and, I know it's been frustrating, the fact that we have this program and we weren't getting any applications. And really I just had a minor suggestion in the section for contacts, since we're the first stage for reviewing, and also that you would be these are Moorhead businesses, could we flip it around and have you and Amy first? So that I'm assuming people if they're going to reach out, they're going to go in the order that they're listed. And then can we add email?
Yeah, we certainly can. I would say actually sometimes though, we have found that they go directly to West Central. So I wouldn't say it's always the step that it comes to us first, but I think
But-
that small adjustment could certainly.
Because shouldn't they probably come to us first, is what
I-
I'm saying. So they'll probably go with whoever's first on the list, but it might be beneficial for them to come to us first since we're going to be reviewing the application.
Yep, no, I agree 100%. Majority of the time, that's what I'd like to see is them check with us. Then we find right now when we're talking with a lot of different business bankers, et cetera, that we make them aware of the program. We kind of facilitate a conversation, let them know who to contact with West Central. So yeah, I think we can change that order and add emails for sure.
Any other comments? Yeah, Pat?
I like the idea of putting a cap on it too. I think it will incentivize people to come forward quicker to maybe get their project rolling. And then also, now, remember the conversation we had with West Central, Derek, about them doing, is this gonna be like a 1099 program or a complete reimbursement, or how is this gonna look?
Well, I think we'll still work out some details with West Central on how that looks from a forgivable standpoint. You'll notice the clause on the bottom that a for-profit business has to have a 1099 for the amount forgivable. So there are some policies put in place by West Central that we have to honor. But we're still working through some of those details and how it would look and feel. So I think this just gives us the starting point. I think we can kind of hammer out the details with West Central on how it would actually play out.
And you, for the time being, you want it to be pretty much based on the facade stuff, not any other thing?
I think right away, yeah, for this potential, or for this program itself, I think we can look into, I know you mentioned some of the contaminations and some other different
Blighted properties.
Blighted
I
properties,
think
yeah.
that we need to incentivize and offer a little trinket for people who own blighted properties to get them torn down. And I just really think that would, there's a few that I have in mind. And, you know, I mean, to incentivize that, because there's asbestos removal and whatever, and I just think that we can use that money to help there too. And even if it's, that's a different category. You know, it's not my intention to drain the whole reserves, but
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. I think the hope is that if it is a substantial project, that we can capture them still with the Renaissance Zone or commercial industrial project. But certainly we can look into that and see. I think it maybe would be maybe a separate program.
Yep.
The big thing is making sure that we're fiscally responsible with those funds that are there, and making sure that we don't give away too much and we're keeping those for certain
no,
projects.
and you know, even if the EDA has to look at that in a separate issue, you know, we're sitting on reserves too, and it's taxpayer money, and I think some of them would like to see some of that stuff removed, and just to try and figure out a way where we can help facilitate that, I think would be a good idea.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay. I guess we need a motion to accept.
Chuck.
Oh, sorry, Chuck.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this looks great. 2 pages. I'm glad it's 2 pages. I remember the old one. Boy. What are we doing to market this? I know a lot of businesses aren't aware of what's happening with this facade, so.
I think that's a broader question that I have probably to the city and to the EDA is that we've made a lot of changes over the last year, some very, very significant changes to our policies and programs. You know, I think I commend Sherry, who's here from the MBA, and myself. We're trying to get out and talk to as many people as possible. It's starting to get out, but I think we can do a better job of it. Whether it's, you know, I don't think a billboard is the answer, because I don't think that's just an appropriate way to market, but we have a lot of different groups in our community that do marketing as their career that could really, truly help us get the word out to folks. I've actually had a lot of groups just come out and reach out to me personally to see if they could help us with it. I know as we get into some of the budget, there's substantial dollars set aside for marketing in the EDA budget. I think we maybe just have to look into that and figure out what's an appropriate way to spread the word. I was going to touch on it a little bit into my economic development report, but I think it's an appropriate time. Is one missing hole that I felt that was really glaring with that Soul Avenue kitchen was just the communication with our banking and our business and commercial lenders in town. I've been having to focus on that over the last 6 weeks, and it's paid off massive dividends with just those individuals knowing what programs we have as available from a general sense. But again, I don't expect them to know it in and out. They know that they can contact me at any point in time, and then I can get them the right information, or that business owner can contact me directly and I can get them the information. I can think of at least 4 projects over the last 6 weeks that have actually closed on land, or they will be coming forward with a project just by having those conversations, whether it was through the bank or through the business owner itself. So, but again, that only goes as far as how many people I can schedule and how many people I can get to. So having a time to almost set the pause button and making sure that we continue to promote what we have is a very, very crucial and important step on how we progress as a community.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.
So crazy as this is, thinking outside the box, Derek, why couldn't we use a billboard?
Well, I mean, we certainly
Do
could.
you think that's too crazy?
No, I think from my personal experience and is I think for the cost of it, it's not the most effective tool.
Okay.
So if we have limited funds to get out, I think having a different, more creative approach rather than trying to target somebody that's going down a main thoroughfare
Okay.
is a more appropriate way. That's my opinion on
Yes.
it. I'm certainly open to other ideas, but I think there's some real creative approaches out there that we could really get
Or
to
just
a
for
better.
example, using the MBA, we have a big email list of people who actually own businesses. And we can send out an email with the new policies that we have, and that'll help create awareness and get people talking to each other.
I would also add, I think since we're narrowing the focus to the Renaissance Zone, that, we're looking at a smaller pool, and you could do more one-to-one outreach. And so I realize with staffing that takes time, but, for some of them, we have some places, I'm thinking back to what Pat mentioned, and there are some that might not necessarily be blighted, but, places that you're like, boy, this, with a little bit of help, this could really be, much nicer looking place, and maybe they just aren't aware of it. And so it might be looking at some of those places and stopping in and making sure that they know that we have these opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's continuing to happen. It's just a matter of, again, the time
Yeah.
that it takes on top of all the other duties that I've
Right.
ran into. I mean, I continue to have that as a focus, but I want to make sure that it doesn't take 3-4 months to get out and talk to folks. If we can get it up front and then follow up maybe in the meantime, that'd be important. We also have, in the e-notifications, we do have a downtown e-notification now. For a while there, I was concerned that maybe I was going to be the only one that signed up for it. But I think after talking with Christy and others at city staff here, there's over 200 people that have signed up for it, which is phenomenal. It blew my mind when I heard it. So we have some resources through there that captures a lot of the Renaissance Zone that we can get out to as well.
One last thing, maybe this would be another, again, partnering with MBA, because they always have great speakers. And so if we were to send notices out to some of those downtown, the Renaissance Zone businesses specifically, and say, if you were to come and give a presentation at an MBA meeting and they know that it's on that particular day, and then they could gather some information, you might hit some people, multiple people at one time.
Yeah, I think Sherry does a good job with that, and she could certainly include me, even if it is for 10 minutes, just to let them know of a potential change that we have and what we're trying to accomplish. So, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we need a motion to accept the changes that have been suggested.
Sorry. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, I'll note too, I think with these changes, we'll probably still take it maybe to council and inform them. I think this authority can actually probably act as the change agent for it, but we'll certainly want to give an update to the council. And I also feel, and back to the marketing and promotional standpoint, I mean, you all here are ambassadors, the council members are ambassadors. I mean, this room alone, we could really kind of get out and tackle a larger audience too if we know what's available too.
Okay, thank you. Next, moving on. Derek, you want to share
Yeah.
information on item number 9.
Absolutely. Well, exciting news. We came to you all last month with a grant application that we're submitting to West Central Initiative regarding, it's a community planning grant that West Central has, but it was in conjunction with efforts that the Greater Fargo Moorhead EDC was doing with a software collaboration with our region. The Salesforce software is what it's called. This really helps coordinate our efforts when we're out talking to different businesses in town. We're able to add tickets, as we noted, of different follow-ups, different concerns that different businesses have, so we can really get the data, but also the information required to go to work for our businesses, which is first and foremost. We're excited that West Central really quickly turned around and approved that within a matter of days. I think we were both, Amy and I were both just shocked that we saw that support right away. It's fantastic. With that being said, you'll see, and I'd be happy to answer questions on the program itself, but I think after our detail that we had at the last meeting, I think everybody has a pretty good understanding what it is. But you'll find the financial considerations on the bottom of this memo as well as the action, but we'd be looking to make a budget adjustment to the amount of $4,300, and then to approve an allocation of $2,133 from dues and subscriptions for the local match of this grant. Again, be happy to answer any questions that the EDA has.
I just want to correct myself. It's item number 8, not
Item number 8,
9.
yep.
Any discussion? Guess we need a motion to accept the award.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Now to number 9. You want to introduce that one as well, Derek?
Yeah, I'll introduce this. This is kind of an evolving process, and the reason why you have a amendment to your packet is this isn't an application for a grant that's being led by the city. We are in a support role to an applicant being more than likely it's going to be MSUM that'll be the lead in partnership with the city. We hope the EDA as well as Emerging Prairie, which is a kind of a business cultivating group. What we've done is we've included just the grant application, kind of word for word from DEED's website. It's really creating a business development grant application. It's really supporting our business development, our entrepreneurial field. I'll give you a little bit of background and maybe a little bit of frustration and disappointment from the state level in that we saw the email come through within a matter of hours. Emerging Prairie reached out to myself and Dan Molly. Greg Tavine, if you don't know, he runs Emerging Prairie, does a great job. He's kind of like a firecracker. He just gets in there and gets things done. He runs TEDx. He runs a lot of business cultivation programs in our region. He wants to be more involved in Moorhead. He wants to partner with us, wants to do great things for us, has tremendous assets and resources at his fingertips. We were hoping in this particular application, it says a public entity or a 501c3 that could be the applicant of it. Downtown Moorhead Inc. is a 501c6. The Moorhead Business Association is a C6 as well, so we would not qualify. Greg Tavine in Emerging Prairie was willing to step up and be that submitter, be that applicant holder. I reached out to the division of DEED that was hosting or kind of facilitating this grant application, which was their small business development division. Was basically told that there's many Minnesota-based businesses that would get the money first before a North Dakota one. I expressed my frustrations in that, you know, we're sick and tired of complaining about the border. We want to embrace that we are a larger region. We have great things at our fingertips. There's really no sense in creating a separate organization that one would maybe even compete with emerging prairie or have the resources to even do some of the things that they do. And was very much dismissed, which was really unfortunate. So, in short, I'm working through with our state partners in that I'm going to the director of DEED, as well as the deputy commissioner of DEED has given a TED Talk presentation that Emerging Prairie had hosted in Fargo recently. So I think that ability for them to recognize that we are unique and different, and that we aren't again complaining about our situation, and that we want to more so embrace our perspective and embrace our partnerships with our regional groups. I haven't gotten a response yet, but I'm hoping to have one fairly soon. This grant has a quick turnaround of July 18th as a submission deadline. So clearly getting a response and getting the information to get Emerging Prairie being our lead on it was going to be tough. So we kind of changed gears. We've been working with our partners at the Tri-College. Scott Meyer is an individual from NDSU Business School. He reached out to former EDA member Marcia Weber and another colleague at MSUM, and really looking at a program created to support women in business, specifically those in entrepreneurial efforts. We think it's a fantastic program. We think they have a really good handle on what the program needs would be. You'll see in the application itself, a lot of it's tailored specifically to a program, which doesn't really necessarily fit. I mean, the city wasn't going to be the one designing the program. We want to piggyback off of something that's out there. The city will end up kind of filling in some of the blanks of an overall general standpoint of the community. So the lead is really coming from Scott, Marcia, and MSUM, and the Tri-Colleges. And again, we look forward to having potential support from the EDA, certainly the Moorhead Business Association, probably Downtown Moorhead Inc., Emerging Prairie, and others to really make sure that we have a leg up in this grant application. So really what we're looking for from the EDA today is really a motion of supporting of this grant, and hope that I'm assuming we'll probably have some letters of support that maybe the board chair will be willing to sign if this is something that the EDA is willing to support. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's pretty raw yet. We have weekly calls to make sure we have check-ins, to make sure we're moving towards it, but we don't have anything finalized for you to review today, so I apologize, but we're working towards that state right now.
Thank you, Derek. Yeah.
Thanks. You answered part of my question, because I know in the grant application, it focuses on underrepresented communities. And so I'm glad to hear that they would work with women entrepreneurs, perhaps. And then, I think that I know I've been hearing more about, for instance, new Americans that are looking at starting businesses in Moorhead and could really use some support. We just, less than 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you attended the Trading on the Red River, and one of the sponsors of that was a Minnesota nonprofit that works with Native American entrepreneurs, and they are interested in doing more in Moorhead. And so I think that there's other opportunities. It would be great to be able to see something like this flourish in our area.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good point. And the frustration that I have, obviously, with the state and the response that I had was really, we have a lot of great regional partners. A lot of them are addressed out of North Dakota. And we're pretty much being told if they have an address out of Minnesota or out of North Dakota that they will not be eligible for these programs. And that's concerning to me in that, again, we're a community of, a little over 40,000 people. We have 150 plus right to the west of us, and really doing some kind of unique things from a state perspective. And again, I think we hope to get away of, this border is the division. I think a lot of people would set up a business and do great things, and they may serve some of the North Dakota population, but they certainly would do great things for Moorhead and Minnesota as a whole. I've had a lot of other groups that have approached us, and it's unfortunate because you're almost damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? You want to partner, you want to get the most out of your regional partnerships, but if other people won't recognize those partnerships, it's a frustrating battle.
So, yes.
So, is this only for like 501c3?
It's or public entities, so the EDA could have been the lead in the application itself. The reason why I think we went a different path with having MSUM be it is that it was really you needed to have a program kind of established or set up or what you were hoping to establish.
Yeah.
In this case, MSUM already had a lot of the structure in place of a program.
Yeah.
We just wanted to piggyback on top of their progress.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, is there a motion to support, I guess?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks. Is there a
Second.
second? Second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
I'll close it out.
All right, why don't you?
I'll go for the home run. Yeah, I mean, just a few highlights on here. I kind of mentioned too, one of the big things, I just think it's again, paid off massive dividends as these meetings with the commercial and business banking members, meeting with their executive teams. I'll continue to do it. I'm meeting with First International tomorrow. As I've met with more and more, even those that I haven't heard from are starting to reach out to me. They want to learn about it. So it's just, it's really paying off. I'm really excited about it. Had the opportunity to attend the Minnesota State of Manufacturing in Alexandria on June 17th. Sat right next to our Minnesota partner, Indeed, our regional rep, who was the one who passed along the information of who to contact. And we've been having side conversations on that process to begin with. But they wanted to sit by us. They wanted to know what was going on. I think I'm in a room full of 100 people, and they chose to sit by Moorhead, which is exciting. So I think they understand that we have change happening and want to help us out any way we can. On June 18th, Mayor Judd was able to join me for the radio show. I think that was a hit. We've had a lot of great guests here lately and continue to kind of build up the momentum of Moorhead. You know, that's just another piece that we can share of marketing, but again, it's a small one. It only gets to a certain crowd. I think we're continuing to build on our partnerships with West Central initiatives, so that's exciting with this willingness for support of our local policies and programs. A couple things to note with the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC. I think some of you received a letter up in the back room, but they have a annual meeting that is coming up here at the end of July, so keep that in the back of your mind. We may have to talk with City Manager Volkers on just the process of that. That's a $40 event.
Thanks, Derek. Mr. Chair, can I just respond to that? I'm glad you asked that. If there's an EDA board member that wants to attend on representing EDA tax levy will pay the $40 fee, but you need to let us know. And so the registration would go through my office, and then we'll get you registered. Amy and I will work this out if Carrie or Amy should do it, but you'd be representing EDA. So if you were going to attend privately, you should just do that. Or like the council can attend on the council dollar, but other people, the EDA tax levy could pay for that.
Yeah, is there a deadline that you need to know about?
There is.
I can't remember if there's an RSVP date on that.
Do you have your envelopes, anybody? Zach?
You know, one thing I'll note as well, while Zach's looking, is this isn't like a traditional sit-down meeting. This is a more open house style. They have perimeter kind of booths, if you want. It's almost like an exhibit hall in a way. The city of Moorhead's been asked to have a booth there that will, if I don't have a kid by that point in time, I'll be there, or Dan Molly will be there in my place. But the hope is that they'll have these kind of different, either private businesses like a Microsoft or American Crystal Sugar, City of Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, all have kind of areas set up where people can casually kind of walk around and figure out what things are happening in their community. We'll probably have to figure out, Amy and I haven't even coordinated this yet, but just what kind of materials we want to share. We've been working on some one-pagers for our incentive program, so making sure that we have consistent and reliable information of the most up-to-date programs and policies, but creating maybe a takeaway so people can understand what we have. But yeah, work through, I guess, City Manager Volkers on if you are wanting to attend. It's in the afternoon. It's at the Air Museum at Hector. So I think it's done by 5:30. It's pretty low key. Couple other things to note too is City Manager Volkers and Amy Thorpe and myself met with representatives and leaders from the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC to go over when we have a business that's looking to expand in our community, or if we have national groups that are looking to request more information about our community. There's a couple different ways that goes about. A lot of times we may get it locally, and we are able to kind of provide a consistent development proposal letter, if you want to call it, with some information of whether it's they're asking specifically about one piece of property, we can get information on pricing, zoning, incentives. Not always, hey, this is what you're going to get, but this is what you may be eligible as you get more information. We also have the flip side of the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC as our regional-based organization and primary sector representative. They may get national site selectors reach out to them on specific properties, or, hey, we have a specific project that we're looking at. Can you present your best sites or your best incentives, et cetera? A lot of times those are pretty quick turnarounds with a maybe a week and a half deadline to kind of turn around that information. In the past, Amy Thorpe, myself, even Chris Volkers and Dan Molly kind of stop what we're doing and make sure we kind of get those questions answered, and then we get that back to the EDC. They're the ones that would then ultimately submit a development proposal to this group. We had questions on what was being submitted on behalf of Moorhead. Also, just what information do they need, and making sure that if they're only putting in half of that information, then we just want to make sure we get them what they truly need, and that's it. We don't want to waste anybody's time. So we had a great conversation with them. We're able to look at our most recent submittal and what they kind of submitted versus what we've presented to them. And I think we had a great coordinated meeting on projects come in the future, just how we work together and the information that they are truly wanting. I don't know if Chris or Amy, you have anything else to add on that, but I thought it was a productive meeting, and it'll certainly save some time on staff when we're trying to answer these questions. That same week of the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC's annual meeting, there also is the TEDx going on. That event is occurring. There's also a sub-meeting that will look at our Opportunity Zone federal incentive program. One of the creators of the policy at the national or federal level is speaking at TEDx. So he is coming in and he's going to host a workshop in a sense. I think it's the day, I might be getting my dates wrong, but it's either the day before or the day after TEDx. Greg Tavine actually just reached out to me this morning to see if I'd be willing to MC the event. They want a presence from Moorhead there to lead it. Again, if I don't have a kid by that point in time, I think I will be doing that. They're willing to take on the risk if somebody needs a sub in for me, but it looks like I'll be able to MC that event and really kind of be the face for. It'll be the workshop for the Opportunity Zone. Yep. Greg Tavine does the emceeing for the TEDx event, but this will be, I've been bringing in state partners to this Opportunity Zones workshop. There's a large investment fund that's created, the Minnesota Fund Advisors. They have a $100 million fund in the state of Minnesota that goes towards Minnesota projects. So I've invited representatives from their organization to come. So we're having a good Minnesota presence. Again, it just goes to show you, I think, as we were talking before, the more things we attend, but also have a bigger presence at and bringing in partners, I think it'll go a long way in what we're trying to accomplish as well. So more to come. If you are interested in that, I can try to get some more information, but there's still hasn't been a whole lot of details out on that yet. I think they're actually trying to get developers from our region here that would potentially either start their own Opportunity Zone fund or be interested in doing the projects, and they would go step by step of what that means from the person that created the policy. So it's a big deal for our area to have somebody like that.
What is the date of that TEDx?
I want to say it's July 25th, but I'm guessing on that right now. I don't know if anybody has something to
It's
look
July
at.
25th.
July 25th, yep.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Zach, did you have that RSVP deadline?
Yeah, they don't give a deadline on here. Registration's online, so they might just take it until the event.
Okay.
I think the only other thing that I'd mention is, well, maybe a couple things would be myself, as well as many of the council members, city manager, attended the League of Minnesota Cities Conference this past week in Duluth. Learned a lot about other peer cities in our community and the good things that are happening. We do have a couple city council meeting updates for you. So we had some approved projects. The enterprise zone tax credit that was for the workers' comp program that was approved on June 10th. This report was done before the June 24th meeting, but those property tax items were approved for Gavilon Fertilizer and Thrive Behavioral Network. Those were commercial industrial property tax incentives, and then we will have the upcoming July 8th Renaissance Zone application for Matt's Automotive. You know, going back to kind of the Renaissance Zone as a whole, I don't know if any of you have seen it, and I appreciate Amy for noticing it this morning, but the Forum editorial board had wrote a basically opinion, I think it came out this morning or yesterday, about the Renaissance Zone and other tax incentives, and it was titled basically "Stop Bickering, These Incentives Work." And one thing, it didn't mention anything about Moorhead's program, but one thing that stood out to me, and really with my connection to Fargo and working with Jim Gilmore, who's the director over in the Planning Development Department, who really was there during the formation of the Renaissance Zone, was the statement of, you know, these projects just don't come. You know, the incentives are what basically started the movement for the revitalization of downtown Fargo, and it just ends it with, you know, period. I mean, that is the reason. If they weren't around, these programs weren't available, people weren't coming to do the projects. I think we're in that similar boat of that early onset. You know, even talking again with former director over there of, you know, how do you handle new projects that come in? This is only our second, you know, project that came in. You know, not all of them are going to be probably a $20 million mixed-use building, but how do you handle some of these projects? And really, it's facilitating a culture of growth and a culture of progress, and really creating movement from a project standpoint. They focused on zoning. They wanted to make sure they had effective zoning in place. And really kind of led from within. And those projects, as they believed that the city was going to represent and respect their projects and help them through their projects, were really the catalyst for the change that they saw. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend looking into it and just reading that article as well.
Thank you, Derek. You want to brief the group here, Amy, on any information updates? You've got the e-notifications available to
Sure.
us.
So in the past, when the EDA meetings were meeting on the fourth Monday of each month, we would include a report from the previous month on building permits and any kind of thing like that. Since we're meeting on the first day of the month, those reports are not available. And so I have included a link in the packet so that you can go and take a look at those reports at your leisure. So probably sometime before the end of this week, they'll be ready for you to download and look at.
Okay.
And Amy, for those of us, like, I'm on a list.
Right.
Where they send them out.
Right.
So if any of the new members aren't on a list, just get them your email address and they can just send it to you. I get it every month.
Okay, thanks.
I was just going to add too, it was a great suggestion by Chair Michael Burns that if we have items that affect the budget, that we include the budget in the packet. So we have it as a laydown item that was in regards to item number 7, or item number 8, sorry. But I think what we'll end up doing is probably on a quarterly basis just be putting the budget in on here, just so we're reviewing it, we all know of it. And then obviously if there is a project that affects the budget or an item that affects the budget, we'll be sure to include it as well.
Okay. think we're done. Meeting
Maybe 4th of
adjourned.
July.
Thank you.
He needs a bottle of water.